Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Shinvatam Swakata Krishna Punyashravana Kirtanaha Hrudayantastobi Abhadrani Vidunoti Suhritsatam Nashtraprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Sloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 29, talks between Narada and King Prachinabarhi, verse 55. Verse 55. Satvam vichakshya mrugachesitam atmanontas chittam niyaccha hrudikarna dunim cha chitte Jahi Anganashramam Asattama Yuta Gatam Prinihi Hamsa Sharanam Viramakramena. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. My dear King, just try to understand the allegorical position of the deed. Be fully conscious of yourself and give up the pleasure of hearing about promotion to heavenly planets by fruitive activity. Give up household life, which is full of sex as well as stories about such things, and take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the mercy of liberated souls. In this way, please give up your attraction for material existence. Purport. In one of his songs, Srila Narottama Dasa Thakura writes, Karma Kanda Jnana Kanda Kevala Vishera Banda Amruta Baliya Eva Kaya Nana Yoni Sada Pire Kadarya Bhakshana Kare Tara Janma Adapate Yaya. Fruitive activities and mental speculations are simply cups of poison. Whoever drinks of them, thinking them to be nectar, must struggle very hard, life after life, in different types of bodies. Such person eats all kinds of nonsense and become condemned by his activities of so-called sense enjoyment. People are generally enamored of the fruitive results of the worldly activity and mental speculation. They generally desire to be promoted to heavenly planet, merge on into the existence of Brahman, or keep themselves in the midst of family life, enchanted by the pleasures of the tongue and genital. The great sage Narada clearly instructs King Barishman not to remain his entire life in the Grihastha ashrama. Being in the Grihastha ashrama means being under the control of one's wife. One has to give up all this and put himself into the ashrama of the Paramahamsa. That is, put himself under the control of the spiritual master. The Paramahamsa ashrama is the ashrama of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, under whom the spiritual master has taken shelter. The symptoms of the bona fide spiritual master are stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 11.3.21. तस्माद् गुरुं प्रपद्येत जिज्ञासौ श्रेय उत्तमम् शब्दे परे च निष्णातं ब्रह्मणि उपसामाश्रयम्. Any person who is seriously desirous of achieving the real happiness must seek out a bona fide spiritual master and take shelter of him by initiation. The qualification of spiritual master is that he must have realized the conclusion of the scriptures by deliberation and argument and thus be able to convince others of those conclusions. Such great personalities who have taken complete shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, leaving aside all material consideration, are to be understood as bona fide spiritual master. A Parahamsa is one who has taken shelter of the Brahman, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If one takes shelter of Paramahamsa, spiritual master, gradually through training and instruction, he will become detached from worldly life and ultimately return home back to Godhead. The particular mention of Anganashramam, Asattama Yuta Gatam is very interesting. The whole world is in the clutches of Maya, being controlled by women. Not only is one controlled by woman, one who is one's wife, but one is also controlled by so many sex literatures. That is the cause of one's being entangled in the material world. One cannot give up this abominable association through one's own effort. But if one takes shelter of a bona fide spiritual master who is Paramahamsa, he will gradually be elevated to the platform of spiritual life. The pleasing words of the Vedas that inspire one to elevate oneself to the heavenly planets are merging to the existence of supreme or for the less intelligent, who are described in Bhagavad Gita as Mayaya Paharta Jnanina, those whose knowledge is taken away by illusory energy. Real knowledge means understanding the miserable condition of material life. One should take shelter of a bona fide liberated soul, the spiritual master, and gradually elevate himself to the spiritual platform and thus become detached from the material world. According to Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakura, Hamsa Sharanam refers to the cottage in which saintly persons live. Generally, a saintly person lives in a remote place in the forest or in a humble cottage. However, we should note that times have changed. It may be beneficial for saintly person's own interest to go to the forest and live in a cottage. But if one becomes preacher, especially in Western countries, he has to invite many classes of men who are accustomed to living in comfortable apartments. Therefore, in this age, a saintly person has to make proper arrangements to receive people and attract them to the message of Krishna consciousness. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura, perhaps for the first time, introduced motor cars and palatial buildings for the residents of saintly person just to attract the general public in big cities. The main fact is that one has to associate with the saintly persons. In this age, people are not going to search out a saint in the forest. So the saints and sages have to come to the big cities to make arrangements to receive the people in general who are accustomed to the modern amenities of material life. Gradually, such persons will learn that palatial buildings or comfortable apartments are not at all necessary. The real necessity is to become free from material bondage in whatever way possible. According to the orders of Srila Supa Goswami, Anasaktasya Vishayan Yatarham Upayanjita Upayunjita Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yuktam Vairagya Uchate. When one who is not attached to anything, but at the same time accepts everything in relation to Krishna. One is rightly situated above possessiveness. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.255. One should not be attached to the material opulence, but material opulence may be accepted in the Krishna conscious movement to facilitate the propagation of the movement. In other words, material opulence may be accepted as Yukta Vairagya, that is for renunciation. So नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय पुत्रे श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी नाम नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवान प्रचारण निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसति गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे राम 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 हरे हरे thank you all. I like to seek the blessing from the all the assembled devotees. Please, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to purify myself. And please forgive me for any shortcomings. So we are in this chapter talks between Narada and King Prachina Barhi. So far we uh, went through Narada Muni's elaboration on the allegorical story because Prachina Barhi did not want to understand fully. So you want Narada Muni to explain different characters. And also Narada Muni's, a direct description of material existence. And Narada also gives the bhakti as a solution. But now this today's verse ends with, you know, uh, how to please the Lord in a supreme activity. And also now last couple of verses, now the new allegory as introduced, about, a deeds allegory. So coming to today's topic, so um, this allegory of the deer used by Sukadeva Goswami is to reveal the subtle nature of material entanglements. So the Bhagavatam is not simply a book of stories, but it is a spiritual mirror. By holding such metaphors, before us, it shows us that who we really are, how we become bound, and how we may be liberated. So this allegory is not about a you know forest animal. It is about us, the conditioned souls, wandering through the forest of material existence and drawn here and there by alluring sounds, promises, and illusions. You know, um, the deer, the Sukadeva Goswami says here, is extremely sensitive to the sound. Hunters do not chase the deer first. Instead, they play sweet music, gentle, flute-like enchanting. Then the deer becomes captivated, steps closer, and as soon as within his hunter's range, you know, that's what the lesson is, simple but striking. The conditioned soul is also haunted, not by force, but by sound. So this world is constantly whispers to us, enjoy this, try that, you will be happy, you will be elevated. But in Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.4 states that, soul becomes bound by the sweet talk of illusion. These are the sounds of gossip, advertising, sensual music, or praise, flattery, or social media, and sounds that hypnotize our mind and drag all our conscious away from Krishna. Srila Prabhupada said, we have fallen into this world because we wanted to hear something other than Krishna. So thus this allegory reminds us that sound vibration, Shabda, determines our consciousness. One sound binds, another liberates. So the holy name is the divine sound that rescues the soul from the hunter of time. Um, and And also, the king in the story instructed to stop hearing about fruitive activities that promises the heavenly enjoyment. This may seem surprising, but since the Vedas themselves describe the heavenly pleasure, long life, opulence, and enjoyment, but the scriptures warn us repeatedly, heaven is still within the realm of bondage. In Krishna tells to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, those who are attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, promising good birth, opulence, and heavenly pleasure, have no resolute intelligence in bhakti. So, heavenly life is simply a well decorated prison cell, beautiful but still temporary. So, in the Srimad Bhagavatam summarizes spiritual life, devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to fully satisfy the self. So any desire for material elevation, even to the heaven, creates motivation and interrupts the pure devotion. So even the mood is evident in Mahabharata when Yudhishthira Maharaj could have easily attained the heaven, but he prayed instead, "Let me remember Krishna, whether in hell, heaven or hell." So this is the heart of a true devotee. So not a heaven, not a liberation, no mystic powers, only service to the Krishna. And especially in this material world, current age, right, household life, when it becomes a cage, modern society binds us to a material life. A modern society functions like the hunter in the deer allegory. There is always constant sense stimulation, screens, music, ads, noise, constantly pulling our attention outward. And also consumerism creates the endless desire. The system survives by making us feel incomplete. So we see all the ads or talks about we need to buy more, want more, remain dissatisfied. Desire becomes a chain, and our desires keep changing. And we are also in the rat race at work, long work hours, pressure, competition, financial stress, all keeping us too busy to think about a spiritual life. And you know maintenance becoming the life of a goal of a life, and the purpose of the life is forgotten in this capitalistic world or material world. And also entertainment that glorifies the special sense pleasure, whatever we see and watch or read, many of those are related to the movies, music, or social media, fill the mind with lust and greed and comparison. And what we hear repeatedly, we begin to desire and binding the consciousness. So that's where, like, even raising the kids, living in this society, only teaches everybody, how to go after all this material pleasure, how to compete, how to get settled, make more money, buy different cars, So it's like everything binds us, and it's hard for us to, undo those things. But unfortunately, we have to raise and live in this society and also detach. So I think if you see us, we always want to have a financial security, and these days everybody says, you need to have this insurance, this much money to live on life and all those things. But our goal is becoming to achieve that independence, maybe by retirement age, and by the time we lose our health and a lot of other abilities where we may not be able to focus on Krishna. And when you have all this insurance, financial freedom, all these benefits, now you have to undo everything. Whatever how many homes you have to detach from them. How many kids you have to detach from them. How much opulence you have to detach from them. So it's like sometimes I feel like we already in Krishna consciousness and we want to have some goals and stability, and then and next thing you do is you start undoing everything. So as if like you are moving into a house, next day you have to, within a week you have to vacate. So then you have to see, what to throw, how to sell, what to do kind of thing. So yeah, this is the world of Maya we are all in. And without elders or gurus and dharmic traditions guiding the heart, the mind defaults to the material pleasure. So, and also, on top of that, there is a digital addiction, and the result is, people become stressed, anxious, and spirituality empty, tied to the life of desire, distraction, and dependency. So here, the way out given in this allegory story and Srimad Bhagavatam multiple times we heard is we have to protect our ears, hear Krishna Katha or Hari Katha, associate with the devotees, and simply, simplify the life and reduce the unnecessary desires, and bring Krishna into the home and chant the holy name sincerely. And I also heard, I think one time Kyola Bhakti Prabhu also said that, happiness is a, you know, is like desires divided by number of desires by desires is accomplished. But as long as we keep on adding the desires, and we have to keep satisfied, complete the desires also. So unless we reduce number of desires, and also being accomplished in what we have, we can never be happy. So modern society binds us not with chains but the desires, but whereas the revelation begins with the moment we choose to hear Krishna instead of illusion. And also in Prabhupada said, in the purport, this does not reject the instruction that warns against household life is filled with sex attraction or mundane stories, but this does not, reject the Grihastha ashrama, so which is sacred, but condemns the Gruhamedi mentality, which is centered solely on the sense enjoyment. So the difference is striking. Gruhastha, our home is centered on Krishna, becomes, our home becomes Vaikuntha. But if you are a Gruhamedi, home is centered on gratification, becomes a dark well. So Srimad Bhagavatam explains that in 7.12.4, Krishna conscious householder can progress as effectively as sannyasi, by, uh, conducting a Grihastha life as per Vedic. And Srila Prabhupada also emphasized, household life is not condemned, but sensitive gratification life is condemned. So, and also, it's given here like, shelter through the mercy of pure devotees, after explaining the dangers, the scripture offers the solution. Take the shelter of the Supreme Lord through the mercy of liberated devotees. And this is the Guru Tattva. We cannot approach Krishna independently, but we require guidance from those who have already taken shelter of him. Chaitanya Charitamrita declares that, by the mercy of a devotee, one get a mercy of Krishna. We have to approach a spiritual master who has seen the truth in fixed in absolute. Srila Prabhupada said, my Guru Maharaj dragged me out of material life. I simply followed him and everything became successful. So the pure devotee that, redirects our ears from material sound to the sound of Krishna or Harikatha, and that way liberation begins from hearing the right sound from the right soul. So with that, I think we can conclude today's session. Vanchakalpatarubhasya Kripa Sindhubhyacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namah. Please forgive me for any shortcomings. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Nice summary.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Excellent summary.
Thank you,
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna,
Thank
Hari
you,
Bol.
Prabhu. Nice summary.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.